Okay, welcome back. Here we are where we left off in the last video. These things always turn out longer than I anticipate because I either both ramble too much and also because I feel obligated to explain where different things are in the menus, especially for folks that are just learning Maya. So forgive me, please bear with me. Let's move on. So first thing is I'm in transparency mode, so let's turn that off by clicking on this icon so we get a better idea of the three major components. I'm going to just for now, I'm going to take the globe and I'm going to hit Control H to hide it. And now I need to separate this into two pieces, so I'm going to hold Shift, right mouse button, and go to Separate. And now you can see I've got a separate component for the top and the base. And so let's give these guys some thickness. So let's pick the top first. Let's go to Edit Mesh Extrude, which is one of these things that I've dragged onto my shelf because I use it so much. It's right here. So with this object selected, I'm going to go to Extrude, and then this menu pops up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go here to Thickness, which is something that was added in one of the later versions of Maya. This little window comes up. This happens in this is sort of an interface similar to Inventor. It also, I believe, is similar to the interface in 3D Max. So Autodesk is obviously integrating some features that they have in other 3D modeling packages that they make. And so what we want to do is we want to give this thing some thickness. So I'm going to come here, I'm going to pick thickness, and let's see what 0.1 looks like. That's kind of thick to me, so I'm going to make this half of that, 0.05. That's a little better. Okay, so there's some thickness added to this thing. Now, if I go to smooth this, it becomes all blobby. That's because I need to have some support edges in here to help hold the edges as it goes around these corners. So the first thing I'm going to do is grab this face. I'm going to go to Shift right mouse button Extrude, and I'm going to extrude this in just a little bit. Okay, and I'm going to do the same thing for this face right here, and I can repeat that command by hitting G. And I'm going to bring this in a little bit, just eyeball it, doesn't have to be perfect. And then now if I go to smooth it, it gets a little better, but it's still kind of soft around these edges here. And so to make that a little tighter, we're going to select one edge, Shift right click, go to Insert Edge Loop right here. I like to look at options. Relative is fine for this. So we're going to throw an edge in right here, and we'll throw another edge in right here on the inside. Now I don't really, this inside's not critical to model, but since it does have a clear globe, and if you get at this angle, you're going to see up into this cap. So I'm going to model it this way so that it looks semi-believable. Although this would really be screwed into the top of the bottle, but this is going to be good enough for what we want to do. So now you can see we're holding the edge up here, and we're holding our edge in here, but now we have like no thickness along this bottom here. So just like we did with the top, we need to add some control edges. Now I could, yeah, let's just do it this way. We're going to come in here, and once again, I'm going to select one edge, because this menu that I'm getting to, by the way, is by holding down the Shift once again and the right mouse button, and it brings up a little different marking menu than when I hold the spacebar down. Okay, spacebar brings up the general marking menu. The Shift and right mouse button will bring up a marking menu that depends on what mode you're in. If I have an edge selected and I'm in polygon mode, I get all of the tools that I can use for edges in polygon mode. And one of those tools is Insert Edge Loop. So I can pick Insert Edge Loop, and I'm going to put a support edge in right here. And I'm going to throw another support edge in right here. Right? And I'm going to hit it. Right? And now you see that if I hit the Z key to zoom in, hit the Q key to drop that tool, go to object mode and hit the F key to frame up on the selected part, you can see now this guy's got some thickness, but it's coming in, it's rounding around here. Now, something about support edges to help you understand what's going on. In order to hold it, make an edge sharp, you need at least 3 edges. Because as Maya smooths this, it interpolates from edge to edge to determine the curvature as it comes around. And right now I've got an edge here, and then this long space and an edge here. So if I really want this to be a little bit sharper here, I need 2 more control edges. right? So insert edge loop. I need an edge loop right here, and I need an edge loop right here. And now when I smooth this, you see, if I press the Q key to come out of that edit mode, now you see that this edge is now more squared off. It's not rounded like it was before. So that's a little bit about control edges, and by the way, that means the cap is done. So there's our cap part done. So let's come out of isolation mode by clicking on, oh, I wasn't in isolation mode, I'm sorry. So now let's repeat the process down here for the base, okay? So first, let's add some thickness. So we're going to pick the object and go to Extrude, which, as you recall, is under the Edit Mesh menu here. So I'm going to hit Extrude, and then I'm going to go to Thickness. And as you recall, I did this as 0.05, so that's the same thickness as the top piece now. Okay, and then just like the top piece, we're going to need to add some control edges, because when we smooth this, it gets all soft, okay? And I'm smoothing, by the way, by pressing the 3 key. That's smooth preview. If I hold the 1 key, I get the unsmoothed version. The other thing is we've got some internal bits in here now that we're not really going to need because we're not going to see them. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick this face down here and delete it. And that now you can see this inner wall goes all the way down the side, so I don't need this face down here. I'm going to delete it. And now you can see all the way up through. And I'm going to get rid of all of these. Now to pick all of the faces in this loop here, you pick one face and then double click on the face next to it, and it will select all the faces that are in this ring. Okay, so then I hit the delete key to get rid of those. And now I do want to have this closed off, so I'm going to pick this edge. I'm going to go to edge by right click and drag up to edge. I'm going to pick this edge down here, and then I'm going to hold shift right mouse and go fill hole. Okay, so there we go. And then of course I want this to be closed at the base, so I'm going to pick this edge down here, and I'm going to do the same thing, fill hole. Okay, so now I need to add the support edges so that this doesn't collapse when I smooth it. And now it's just a matter of going through like we did before. I'm going to grab this face, I'm going to extrude that face, going to go to scale mode, and I'm going to bring it in just a little bit. And then I'm going to come down here, select this edge, right mouse button and shift and insert edge loop. I'm going to put an edge loop right in there. Right in there. And if I smooth that now, you see I get a nice tight edge here at the base. Don't worry about this N-gon down here. On a planar surface, you won't have a problem with N-gons. If you're really concerned about N-gons, you can come in and split this up, but it's really not an issue. So now the next thing to do is pick this face down here. We need to do the same thing. Extrude. Scale it in just a little bit. My mouse is being a little finicky. There we go. And then likewise come in here, select that edge, shift right click, insert edge loop, and throw an edge loop right there. Okay. Now we need to tighten this up, right? See how that, now the bottom is nice and tight and the inside is tight. We just have to worry about these edges and this middle part here. So this is easy. We're just going to add an edge loop in right here since we're still in edge loop mode. Actually, I'm going to slide these out. Now if you put an edge loop in too close, you can either hit the Z key to back out. I'm going to press the Q key to drop that insertion tool. I'm going to double click this edge, shift right mouse, and I'm going to slide edge. I'm just going to slide this guy up a little bit. And you'll see why I'm going to do this in a second. If I now smooth, you see I get this nice tight edge here, but if you look at the reference image, there's actually a seam here. So I'm going to simulate that seam by selecting this edge, and I'm going to go shift, right click, and throw in a bevel. You see that bevels that out. Go to the channel box, and on the bevel width, I'm going to set this to say 0.2. Yeah, that's good. And then I'm going to come in here, I'm going to select this face, and then double click the face next to it, and then shift, right mouse, extrude, and I'm going to push this in ever so slightly, like that. Okay? See? Like right there. And then if I come back out, you see I got a nice seam that I've created here. Okay, so now that's all that's left on this is to tighten up this edge going around, and that's the same process as before, but I'm going to show you a little faster way to do it. If I select this edge loop by double clicking this edge, right, that selects the whole edge loop, and then I hold the shift key down and double click on this edge, that selects that inner edge loop. And remember the bevel tool? If I come here and shift right click and hit bevel, right, what that did is it adds two edges coming around here, which is going to be round. It's going to round this off if I shift it, shift it. If I hit the 3 key to smooth it, that's going to round off. If I want to make that a little bit tighter, a little more square, I can first of all hit the 1 key to come out of a smooth mode. I can select the object and go to the bevel mode, and instead of 1 segment, I can put 2. And now if I get in closer here, what you see is I have 1, 2, 3 edges real close together, and then 1, 2, 3 edges real close together. So that's going to create a tighter corner here. And this brings up another thing that's going to happen. This has been a bug in Maya for a couple revisions now. You notice when I threw that bevel in that my shader got lost on these polyfaces right here. If that ever happens to you, just make sure you're in object mode, pick the object, hold the right mouse button down, no shift or anything, just the right mouse button, go down to assign existing material and throw the Lambert shader back on, and all of a sudden that fixes it. And then now I have a mode turned on also where I show soft edges as dashed and hard edges as solid. So to actually, I like to model with everything hard shaded, or all the normals set to hardened, so I can actually see the faceting a little bit better. And to get to that, you can just go to normals. I'm sorry, not normals. Soften, harden edges. Well, shift right, soften, harden edges, and harden edges, right? Which I also have up here on my custom shelf. So where it's hidden in here, edit mesh. I'll, like I said, that's why I don't. If I sit here and have to show you where everything is in the menus, it makes things bad. But now when I smooth it, you see we get a nice little sharper edge coming around here. Okay. Now we're still picking up some kind of artifacts, and that's because there's a lot of distance between these edges up here and these faces here. That's really not going to be an issue when you render. You won't see it, but if that does bug you, you can come in here, pick this edge, go to Insert Edge Loop mode, and go to Multiple Edges, and you can throw a couple of edges in here, like 3. And now you see when I smooth it, right? You don't get that weird artifacting coming around this corner here, right? But it does increase the poly count in your model, so it's just up to you if it's really you feel it's necessary to add that. I'm going to Control Z back out of that because, like I said, when I render, you won't see this kind of artifacting you're getting around the corners here. So now the base and the top is done. If I bring back the globe, which I hid by hitting Control H, so if I hit Shift Control H, it brings back the last thing I hid. So the globe now comes back, and if I look at it from the side view, you can see I got this nice little lip on either side of the globe. And I can hide this image plane. Right, you can see I got a nice little lip on either side of the globe. If I smooth this, it'll collapse in a little bit. But you see that it's losing its tightness around this edge right here, which once again we know the reason for that is because I don't have any support edges. So what I can do is come in here and go Insert Edge Loop, and I can throw a loop. Whoops. Go to the tool settings, and I was still in multiple edge loops, so I'm going to go back to relative, and I'm going to throw an edge in. If that happens, sometimes you've got to come all the way back out, repick the Insert Edge Loop tool, make sure you're in the right mode, and then add an edge loop in right here, and an edge loop in right there, and smooth it. And yeah, that's about the curvature I want, right? Now you can tighten up or loosen this. Now this is a good place to demonstrate the hardened edges issue. If I select this edge, for instance, and then I hold Shift and right key and go to slide, you can see as I slide this edge closer to this edge, this becomes tighter, this corner here. So I can just sort of pick where I want it to be, like that is a good shape. And actually, if I go to the side view and I bring my reference image back, right, we can even make it match our reference image a little bit better, right? And well, we're kind of off of our reference image now. I mean, I could get it to match, but that affects the base as well. And since I got my support edges in and stuff, let's just, well, let's do it. We'll pick everything in here, and we'll scale this up. Smooth it. Right, we'll scale this whole. Now I'm scaling it, and I'm restricting it to scaling in just the XZ plane by, once again, holding the control key down, and I'm just scrubbing the Y scale manipulator. That's only scaling it in X and Z. Now, because of perspective, once again, this is not matching up exactly with the reference image, but that's pretty darn close. Okay, so there we go. So now we're pretty close on to what the reference image is. And if I come in here, the only thing I'm going to have to work on a little bit is that this is there's a little bit too much of a gap between the globe and the inside of that. The cap and the globe, once again, is probably, oh wait, if I'm going to select the globe, and I'm going to go isolate by picking this icon right here. Oh, that's good. I thought I was probably getting some rounding because this globe needs to be closed off, right? So what I need to do is select this one edge, Shift right click, and say fill hole. And then do the same thing down here. Pick this one edge, right click, and Shift and hit fill hole. And now, as you recall, there's no support edges, so that's going to round out when I do that. So let's come in here now and let's make sure this is smoothed out. So we're going to do extrude, and we're going to bring this face in a little bit. And insert edge loop, and I'm going to throw an edge loop in right here. While I'm in insert edge loop, you can come down here and just throw one in right here. And then hit the Q key to drop that tool, go to face mode, and Shift right click Extrude Face, and extrude this in a little bit. Now when I smooth it, there's our globe, and it's all sealed off in the correct shape. But now let's go back and let's fit it in our inside of our base a little bit better, right? And so to do that, let's take all of these vertices, right? And if I go to press the 4 key, I go to Wireframe, and you can see I've included the vertices down at the base there. 5 key to go back to shaded mode. 3 key to smooth it. R key to go into scale, and then just scale this out a little bit. All right, I don't want it to be overlapping, but I want it to be where it's clearly sitting inside of the inside of that. Okay. And then up here, this might be a little too close, so I'm going to go once again vertex mode, press 4 key so you can see. I'm going to pick all these verts, side view, and you can see it's inside the cap here. Well, let's bring it in just a little bit more, like that. Right, and the issue there is, you see this has sort of got a bend to it now, so let's take this, just eyeball that back out straight, and then let's take these guys, and scale those back in like that, so it's inside the cap. Actually, if I do that, this is matching our reference plane already, so let's actually do this a little differently. Let's pick the cap and pick all these vertices and scale those out. There we go. 5 key to go into shaded mode, select the globe, 3 key to go there, and I can see that's probably, yeah, that's a little bit overkill. So let's take the whole cap, go R for scale, center its pivot, which is under modify center pivot, constrain it to X and Z, control, and then scrub just the Y, and scale this whole thing down so that it fits tightly around, but it's not penetrating. And there we go. Okay, so, and then hit the 6 key to go into textured mode, and there you go. There's the glow ball model, and we're all set. So the only thing that would be left is to model the little section where the light bulb is in the base, and that's only going to take about 5 minutes. So let me just do one last video and we'll wrap this up. Or I could just stay in this video. We'll just make this one half an hour and we'll wrap this up. So the last thing left to do is to, in the base here, if I go to side view and wireframe 4, just like with the top, you can see we're probably a little too tight down here. So if I grab this guy and go to vertex and grab these guys and just scale those out just a smidge, you want it to be sort of parallel, but it's fitting inside of the base. Now let's pick the base and let's go back to perspective view. Let's isolate the base. Press the 5 to go back into shaded mode. 1 to go back into unsmooth mode. Pick this face. We're going to extrude it, right? Shift, and I just drag down to extrude, right? We're going to scale it in, right? I'm going to hit, I can either hold the shift right mouse and extrude again, or I can just press the G key to repeat the last command and push this down, right? And then once again, I need to add some support edges in there. So what I'm going to do is hit G one more time, and I'm going to scale this in just a little bit, and then I'm going to come back out here, and I'm going to take and just pick one edge and then shift right click, go to insert edge loop, and I'm going to throw some support edges there, there, and there. And now when I smooth, I've got a little indentation down here. And so the last thing we need to do is we need to have something down here that represents the geometry for our light source. And all we need down here for that is a sphere. So let's just come out here, create polygon sphere. I'm going to drag it out over here. And I'm in isolation mode, so that's why it disappeared when I let go of the mouse. So if I come out of isolation mode, there it is. And we don't need this much geometry, right? The default is 20 by 20. I'm going to make it 8 by 8, and it's probably debatable if we even need 8 by 8. If you go 6 by 6, when you smooth it, you get sort of an egg shape. You notice that? If I go 8 by 8, it gets a little more sphere shaped. So, but it's a light bulb, so an egg shape is fine. Let's go 6 by 6, right? And then what I can do is squish it down like that to make it more round. That works. When it's smooth, it'll be just fine. So go back to the side view, and once again, let's put this at the origin by grabbing in the channel box its XYZ position and set them to 0. And then I can hit 4. Oops. Got to make sure you come out of the channel box. I can hit 4. How about hitting 0? And then right click inside of the window here and then hit 4 to go to wireframe. W to get to the move tool, and then just bring this up so it's sitting inside of this thing. And that's interesting. Not centered anymore. Bring up my grid. Yeah, I moved it off center when I was jiggling things around to match up the reference plane. We'll fix that. It's not really important. Just by eye, bring this over to here. It's a little too large, so let's scale it down. Right. Also, the bottom of the globe is right here, so we don't want it to be penetrating the globe. So right there's a good size. Boom. Oops. My bad. Okay, this being off-center is bugging me now because I see it's way off-center here. So before we position the globe, I'm just going to, or the bulb, I'm just going to pull this whole thing out. I'm going to go to the outliner, which is over here. And you can see here's all of our components. We've got the cylinder, which was, if you recall, we started out and we cut it up. So it's got this, it grouped everything and it created this transform node. So this is a good time to point out whenever you extract surfaces, duplicate surfaces, delete surfaces from an object, it's going to create, or you separate surfaces like we did, it's going to create this group with the surfaces in it and this transform node. We're also building up, if I select things, you see we got a lot of history building up for all the operations that we've performed. Let's delete all that history. We can do that in one shot by going to Edit, Delete by Type, History. And oh, yeah, sometimes that happens for me. It just crashed and dumped everything to this .ma file. Fortunately, it's backed up, so just let me close this for a second, get that file, and bring it right. Okay, we're back. Sorry about that. That happens to me when I delete history sometimes. Fortunately, it dumps a backup, and all I have to do is reload the backup, and back up and running. So where we were at was I went in and I deleted history, which got rid of that transform node and all the history that was building up on all of the parts. Okay, so that's all that did. I don't like this to be grouped, so I'm going to come in here and go Edit, Ungroup. Okay, so there's all of our separate components. Now's not a bad time to name them, so we'll double click on this and call this globe. We'll select this guy and call this bulb. You see it's highlighted the bulb there. Bulb. We'll double click on this guy and call it the base. We'll double click on this guy and call it the cap. Okay, we'll take all of these things and we'll hold Control G, group them together, and name them lava lamp. Okay, and there we go. Now, with lava lamp selected, right, let's take this guy out. I'm going to select this guy and hit Shift P. That pulls it out of this group. Now, with this group selected, I can say modify center pivot. So now you can see the pivot is at the center of this object. And so now what I can do is from the top view, right, I'm going to drag the whole thing over, and then I'm going to middle mouse gesture on this right here, and that's going to move the center right to the center of the origin. Of course, it's now going to move it. If I go to perspective, oh, it must have been locked in the X and Y plane, so it did. I thought it would move the whole thing down as well. But now if I go to side view, my image plane is off, and what I'm going to do is unlock the image plane, pick it, and I'm going to scooch the image plane over rather than the so that that's lined up. Okay, there we go. And then I'm going to lock that again. Not that it's important anymore, but you know, I just want to have everything lined up right. So now if I put this guy at the origin, 0, and I come in from the side view, and I go to wireframe, and I pick that guy, I can now bring him up and set him where he's supposed to be, right? Which is below the bottom of the globe and above this little hole I've created down here. You won't need to put the bottom part of the bulb because you'll never see it, and it's just going to be a light source in there. If I hit the 5 key now, just to see what we've got, I'm going to pick this globe, and I am going to go to the Hypershade, which you get to by going to Windows, Rendering Editors, Hypershade. And I'm going to create a new Maya material, and I'm going to create a Fong. Double click on this Fong, come over here into the channel box, and I'm going to set its transparency. Well, before I do that, I'm going to select the globe, and I'm going to come over to the Hypershade, right click and assign material to selected, and you'll see that the globe now becomes shiny. Okay, and now if I go to this, select the Fong that I just created, and I go to its transparency and I slide it down to like right there, you can see that it's now transparent, but we can still see the edges. And then I'm also going to pick the bulb, and once again, coming over to Hypershade, try to so you can see them both, I will pick this Fong, pick the globe, or the bulb, and then right click and select Assign Material to Selected, and you see the bulb becomes transparent in there, okay? And we can use the same material for the bulb and the globe right now. This is just going to be a light source in here. It's going to be generating a light, so this is just going to be a glowing sphere, so you really won't see any of the details in it, but it's just there, so you know there's a bulb there. Okay? And in fact, just for that reason, it doesn't even really need to have a shader on it. So let's go back and select the bulb, and then what you can do is just hold down the right key, go down to Assign Existing Materials, and put the Lambert back on it, because that's just going to be assigned a glowing material, so it doesn't really matter right now. The main thing is I just wanted the globe in here so you could see the separation between the base, the globe, and the top. And if I go to the side view and press the 4 key, not the 4 key, the 6 key, you can see that we have a pretty good match to our reference image. So there we go. There is the how to model the lava lamp. And so I'll wrap this up here, and in the next part of the tutorial, Dave's going to show you how to model up the inside of this and animate the wax and the oil using Maya Dynamics. I hope you guys found this helpful, and thanks for watching.